What if everything you've ever known, your memories, your identity, your very existence, was just a clerical error in the grand bureaucracy of reality? Dr. Sarah Chen never imagined her career in quantum physics would lead her to uncover the terrifying truth about existence itself. But when her reflections started filing paperwork and reality agents began auditing her life, she realized she wasn't just a scientist anymore. She was a glitch in the system. Get ready for a mind-bending journey into a world where even reality needs to be filed, stamped, and approved. Dr. Sarah Chen knew something was wrong when her reflections started filing paperwork. She had grown accustomed to the usual uncertainties of quantum physics. Electron clouds that changed their position when observed, Schrödinger's perpetually ambiguous cat. But watching herself methodically stamp documents that didn't exist in her reality felt like a bureaucratic breach of causality. The reflection Sarah wore a gray suit she didn't own and a badge that read Department of Metaphysical Corrections, Division of Ontological Maintenance. When their eyes met across the mirror barrier, Reflection Sarah held up a form labeled Notice of Reality Deviation, Class C13, and pointed to a box checked in red ink, Unauthorized Perception of Administrative Functions. That's when Sarah's memories began their mandatory audit. They came for the childhood ones first, men and women in identical gray suits who materialized from the shadows between ceiling tiles. They carried silver briefcases filled with crystalline tubes, each containing what looked like liquid light. These are temporary storage vessels, one explained, pressing a cold metal device against her temple. We'll return all validated memories once we've confirmed they comply with standard reality protocols. The extraction felt like ice melting backwards through her skull. She watched her 7th birthday liquefy and flow into one of the tubes, the candles on her cake burning in reverse, the song her mother sang unspooling into separate notes that hung in the air like frozen rain. Her first kiss decanted into another tube, the sensation of warm lips dissolving into a chemical equation expressing the theoretical possibility of human connection. We're finding significant irregularities, said a woman whose name tag read only infinity. She held up a tube that pulsed with angry red light. This memory of your father's death shows clear violations of narrative causality. The cancer spread in a pattern that forms the first 1,000 digits of pi. That's mathematically improbable and aesthetically suspicious. Sarah wanted to protest, but her vocabulary had been temporarily suspended pending linguistic review. Her words came out as citation numbers referencing texts that hadn't been written yet. The audit spread beyond her memories, into the present moment itself. Teams of metaphysical accountants began reconciling her quantum states, frowning at the discrepancies between her observed and actual positions in space-time. They discovered she had been simultaneously occupying 3 different career paths and existing in a superposition of married and single states. This level of ontological tax evasion carried serious penalties. Your reality license has been suspended, announced a supervisor who flickered in and out of existence between syllables. His face was a compilation of every authority figure she had ever known, features shifting like oil on water. Until you complete the necessary paperwork and pay all outstanding causality fees, you'll be transferred to our temporary holding dimension. The holding dimension turned out to be a vast waiting room decorated in shades of bureaucratic beige. Other reality violators sat in uncomfortable chairs, filling out infinite loops of forms that asked impossible questions. List all versions of yourself that have never existed, and describe the color of silence using only numbers, and calculate the exact weight of your potential futures. Show your work. Sarah spent what felt like centuries there, though time measurement was strictly prohibited without proper certification. She watched her fellow detainees slowly fade into statistical probabilities. One man became a walking bell curve, another dissolved into a cloud of demographic data points. A woman in the corner transformed into a series of footnotes in the autobiography she had never written. To pass the time, Sarah began studying her case file. The deeper she read, the more she discovered that her entire life had been a clerical error. Her birth certificate was stamped with a metaphysical misfile code. Her DNA sequence contained redacted information, and her consciousness had been accidentally copied from a template marked for training purposes only. She learned that reality itself was just one department in a vast cosmic bureaucracy. The laws of physics were actually more like guidelines, enforced by overworked universal constants who took frequent coffee breaks. Quantum uncertainty was the result of particles filing incomplete paperwork. Even time was merely a filing system that had gotten out of hand. The breakthrough came when she noticed a loophole in the regulations. According to subsection W of the Reality Maintenance Code, any being who becomes aware of the bureaucratic nature of existence automatically qualifies for a position within the department. By reading her own case file, she had inadvertently applied for a job. They issued her a gray suit, a badge, and a paradox-proof pen that wrote in colors that didn't exist. Her first assignment was to audit her own memories, creating the very investigation that had led to her employment. The supervisor called this narrative efficiency. Now Sarah works in the Department of Metaphysical Corrections, processing reality violations and maintaining the illusion that existence makes sense. Sometimes she reviews her own case file again, watching herself discover her reflection doing paperwork, starting the cycle anew. During her lunch breaks, she sits with the other agents, former reality violators all, and they trade stories about their lives before they learn the truth. The hardest part, says a colleague who used to be a quantum physicist before she was caught calculating unauthorized possibilities, is writing up citations for the violations you haven't discovered yet. Precognitive paperwork requires perfect grammar in future perfect tense. Sarah nods, remembering the future memory of this conversation she'll file next week. She's learned that reality is less about what's real and more about keeping the right records. Every morning, she checks her reflection to make sure she's wearing regulation-compliant existence, and every evening, she carefully files away her observations of other people's unauthorized realities. Sometimes, late at night in the office, she pulls out the tube containing her father's mathematically improbable death and holds it up to the light. The numbers still spell out pi, a small act of rebellion against the ordered universe. She keeps meaning to correct this violation, to make his death conform to proper statistical models, but something always stops her. Perhaps it's the reminder that even in a universe run by bureaucrats, beauty can emerge from errors. The department is currently investigating a major reality breach. They've discovered that everyone in the universe might be reading about themselves in a story at this very moment. Sarah has been assigned to the case. If you're reading this, she'll be visiting you shortly with some forms to fill out. Please have your existential documentation ready for review. Remember to sign all copies across all possible timelines, and don't worry too much about the paradoxes. They have a whole division for that. In a universe ruled by paperwork and paradoxes, Dr. Sarah Chen found her place as both victim and enforcer of a system that defies all logic. But what does it say about existence when the most extraordinary moments emerge from its flaws? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating tales that will make you question everything.